rewarding the loyal, the granddaughter's new life. I stood frozen in the living room as my Aunt Miranda's voice sliced through the air like a knife. "You've been stealing from us, Lila. Don't think we haven't noticed." My Uncle Jerome nodded, his face twisted with fake concern. Cousin Petra smirked from the corner, arms crossed. They surrounded me like wolves circling prey, each accusation more vicious than the last. Manipulation, ungratefulness, leeching off the family fortune. My heart pounded as I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. These were the people I had helped for years, the ones I cooked for, cleaned for, and cared for without complaint. Now they stood united against me, their eyes cold and merciless. "Pack your things," Miranda hissed. "You're done here." Through the window, I saw my grandfather Elias sitting in his study, watching silently. His weathered face looked pained, but he said nothing as Jerome grabbed my belongings and threw them onto the cold porch. The sound of my suitcase hitting the ground echoed in my chest. I walked away with tears burning my eyes, each step heavier than the last. Behind me, I heard Elias pick up the phone. His voice was stern, final. "Start the transfer immediately." 3 days later, Grandpa Elias called me to a quiet cafe across town. His hands shook slightly as he slid a folder across the table. "I need you to know something, Lila. Something I've kept hidden for years." My stomach twisted with worry. He looked older somehow, more fragile than I remembered. "I've been watching," he said softly, "watching how everyone treated me, how they counted my money before I was even gone. But you," his voice cracked slightly, "you never changed. Even when your own life got hard, you still came. You still cared." He explained that years ago, he had built a fortune nobody knew about. Investments, properties, accounts hidden from prying eyes. He had documented everything, every cruel word, every greedy glance, every time they left him alone while you sat beside him. "This is for you," he whispered. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out an old envelope, sealed with my grandmother's crest pressed into burgundy wax. My fingers trembled as I took it. "Open it when the time comes," Elias said, his eyes glistening. "You'll know when." Miranda noticed the change first. Elias stopped answering their calls, stopped attending family dinners. When Jerome visited unannounced, Grandpa turned him away at the door. I watched from a distance as panic spread through the family like wildfire. They gathered at Miranda's house, voices rising in accusation. "He's hiding something," Petra insisted, pacing the kitchen. "Ever since Lila left, he's been different." "It's her," Jerome spat. "She's poisoned his mind against us. We should never have let her stay so long." They plotted late into the night, scheming ways to regain control. Miranda suggested declaring Elias mentally unfit. Jerome wanted to contest any recent changes to legal documents. Petra volunteered to search his house for papers. "We need to force her out completely," Miranda declared. "Make sure she can never come back." But then Petra's phone buzzed. She glanced down and her face went pale. Someone just posted in the family group. Elias was seen at a law office downtown. The room fell silent. They all knew what that meant. Elias insisted on one final family dinner. I begged him not to go, but he was determined. "They need to hear this," he said firmly. The atmosphere in Miranda's dining room was suffocating. Everyone sat stiffly, forks scraping against plates in tense silence. I could barely swallow my food. Then Elias set down his glass and looked around the table. His voice was ice-cold. "Miranda, you told me last Christmas you'd visit more often. I haven't seen you since." Her face flushed red. "Jerome, you borrowed $40,000 for your business 3 years ago. You never paid it back, but you bought a boat last summer." Jerome's jaw clenched. "Petra, you promised to help your grandmother before she died. You were in Cancun during her final week." The table was silent except for the ticking clock. "I've watched you all. I've seen exactly who you are." Elias stood slowly, leaning on his cane. "Tomorrow, everything changes." Moments after we left Miranda's house, Elias collapsed on the sidewalk. I screamed for help as his body went limp in my arms. The ambulance arrived within minutes, sirens wailing through the night. At the hospital, the family rushed in, but not for Elias. They huddled in the waiting room, whispering frantically about what he might have meant. What changes were coming? When I tried to enter the emergency room, Jerome blocked my path. "Family only. I am family," I protested. "Not anymore," Miranda said coldly. "You should leave." Security escorted me out. I sat in my car, sobbing, phone clutched in my shaking hands. 2 hours later, a nurse called. "Ms. Rowan, your grandfather is asking for you specifically. He says you're the only one he'll see." When I rushed back inside, Jerome tried to stop me again. The nurse cut him off sharply. Mr. Rowan's instructions were very clear. Only Lila. I walked past them, their shocked faces burning into my memory. Elias's lawyer, Mr. Caldwell, met me in a private room at the hospital. He was a sharp-eyed man in his 60s, carrying a leather briefcase that looked older than me. "Ms. Rowan, your grandfather has made unusual arrangements," he began. "He's requested that certain aspects of his will be activated immediately, even before his passing." I stared at him, confused. "Is that even legal?" "It's unconventional, but yes. He's transferred ownership of several assets into your name already. The rest will follow according to his instructions." My head spun. Why would he do this now? Mr. Caldwell's expression softened. "Because he wants to see you protected. He wants to watch you receive what you deserve before it's too late." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small brass key, placing it in my palm. It was warm and heavy. "This opens the first part of your inheritance. Your grandfather wants you to go there alone." "Where?" I whispered. He handed me a folded map with an address circled in red ink. The key led me deep into the forest, down a winding dirt road I had never noticed before. At the end stood a small cabin, hidden among towering pines. My grandmother's favorite flowers still grew wild around the porch. Inside, everything was preserved perfectly. Photos lined the walls, pictures of me as a child, helping Grandpa in the garden, me reading to Grandma during her illness, me bringing groceries, fixing the roof, painting the fence. But there was more. Journals filled with Elias's handwriting documented everything. Every time Miranda borrowed money and never returned it. Every holiday Jerome missed. Every lie Petra told. And every single thing I had done, recorded with love and gratitude. Then I found the filing cabinet. Inside were financial documents, property deeds, and investment portfolios. My hands shook as I read the numbers. On top of everything sat a bank statement. 6 zeros stared back at me. I collapsed into a chair, the paper fluttering to the floor. I had barely caught my breath when car doors slammed outside. Through the window, I saw Miranda's SUV parked beside Jerome's truck. Petra was already storming toward the cabin. They burst through the door without knocking. "Hand them over," Miranda demanded. her eyes scanning the journals spread across the table. "Whatever Elias gave you, it belongs to the whole family." "He's confused," Jerome added, his voice falsely gentle. "He's old, Lila. He doesn't understand what he's doing. You're manipulating him." Petra grabbed for the documents. I snatched them back, my heart racing. "No," I said. My voice came out stronger than I expected. "These are mine. Grandpa wanted me to have them. You selfish little—" A loud knock interrupted her. We all turned. A sheriff stood in the doorway, hand resting on his belt. "We received a report of trespassing," he said, looking directly at Miranda. "This property is registered to Lila Rowan. I'm going to need you folks to leave." Their faces went white. Against every doctor's recommendation, Elias checked himself out of the hospital the next morning. When the nurse protested, he simply smiled and said, "I have something important to finish." I met him at his house. He looked weak but determined, moving with purpose despite his trembling hands. "They left you outside that hospital," he said quietly, settling into his favorite chair. "They tried to keep you from me. After everything you've done. Grandpa, please rest." "No." His voice was firm. "I need to finish this while I still can. I won't let them hurt you any more." He pulled out a thick stack of papers from his desk drawer. The new will. His signature was already on most of the pages, but a few remained blank. He uncapped his pen and signed each one slowly, deliberately. His hand shook, but each letter was clear. When he finished the final page, he looked up at me with tired eyes. "There. It's done." "What's done?" He smiled sadly. "Your new beginning." The next morning, chaos erupted. Miranda called me 17 times before I finally answered. Her voice was pure panic. "What did you do? Our accounts are frozen. Every single one." Jerome was shouting in the background. Petra was crying. The sound of their desperation should have felt satisfying, but it just made me feel hollow. "I didn't do anything," I said truthfully. "Liar! This is your revenge, isn't it? You've turned Elias against his own family." Before I could respond, she hung up. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with a photo. A court summons addressed to Miranda, Jerome, and Petra Rowan. The hearing was scheduled for next week. The charge: financial elder abuse and exploitation. They thought I had orchestrated everything. They had no idea Elias had been planning this for years, documenting every transaction, every broken promise, every cruelty. Another text came through, this one from Petra. "You'll pay for this." I turned off my phone and sat in the quiet cabin, wondering when my life had turned into something I no longer recognized. The courtroom was packed. I sat beside Mr. Caldwell, my hands folded tightly in my lap. Across the aisle, Miranda, Jerome, and Petra whispered frantically with their lawyer. Elias sat in the witness stand, looking small but resolute. The judge asked him to present his evidence. What happened next made the entire room gasp. Video footage played on a screen. Hidden cameras Elias had installed years ago. Miranda rifling through his medicine cabinet, taking pills. Jerome pressuring him to sign blank checks. Petra laughing as she told her friends, just waiting for the old man to die. Then came audio recordings. Conversations where they discussed how to access his accounts, how to declare him incompetent, how to push me out so I couldn't interfere. Finally, written statements from nurses, neighbors, and friends. All of them confirmed the same thing. Lila was the only one who truly cared. The judge reviewed everything in heavy silence. Then she looked up. "I'm approving Mr. Rowan's petition. Lila Rowan is hereby named legal executor of his entire estate, effective immediately." Miranda's scream echoed through the courtroom. A week later, Elias handed me a thick envelope. Inside was a property deed. "I bought this building 30 years ago," he explained. "It's been renting out apartments ever since. The income is modest but steady. Now it's yours." I stared at the address. A whole apartment building. My name was already on the title. "Grandpa, I can't." "You can. You will." He squeezed my hand. "You deserve security, Lila. You deserve a foundation that nobody can take from you." Tears streamed down my face as I hugged him. He felt so fragile in my arms, like he might break. That afternoon, I visited the building for the first time. It was beautiful, old brick with flower boxes in the windows. Tenants smiled and waved as I walked through. An elderly woman on the third floor approached me in the hallway. "You're Lila?" "Oh, sweetheart, Elias talked about you all the time." She pressed something into my hand. "Another envelope. He asked me to give you this when you came." Inside the envelope was a handwritten list. Names I didn't recognize at first, then slowly remembered. The college student I had tutored for free. The single mother I had helped with groceries. The veteran I had driven to appointments when his car broke down. Beside each name, Elias had written what happened to them after I helped. The student graduated and became a teacher. The mother started her own business. The veteran reconnected with his family. "You changed their lives," Elias had written at the bottom. "You never knew, but I kept track. Every kindness matters, Lila. Every single one." I was still crying when someone knocked on my apartment door that evening. A young woman stood there, nervous and hopeful. "Are you Lila Rowan?" "Yes. I'm Alexis. You tutored me in math 7 years ago. I was failing everything, ready to drop out. You spent 3 months helping me after school, never asking for anything." She wiped her eyes. "I'm a high school teacher now. Because of you. I owe you everything." The family's final attack came through social media. Miranda created a blog post that went viral overnight. How a manipulative granddaughter stole our family fortune. It was full of lies. Photos taken out of context. Quotes I had never said. Screenshots of fake conversations. Within hours, strangers were sending me hate messages. My name became a trending topic. I stopped leaving my apartment. Stopped answering my phone. The cruelty of strangers hurt almost as much as my family's betrayal. Mr. Caldwell called daily, urging me to fight back legally. But I was exhausted. Every time I tried to defend myself online, the attacks grew worse. Then, one morning, I woke up to hundreds of notifications. A press conference had been announced. Elias was going to speak publicly. About everything. I tried calling him to stop it, but he wouldn't answer. The conference was set for 2 o'clock that afternoon. News stations were already promoting it. "Please don't do this," I texted him. "Let it go." His response was simple. No more hiding. Every major news channel carried the press conference live. I watched from my apartment, heart in my throat, as Elias walked slowly to the podium. He looked directly into the cameras and began speaking. His voice was steady, powerful despite his age. He told everything, named Miranda, Jerome, and Petra specifically, described their exploitation, their cruelty, their greed. He showed documents on screen, proof of every lie they had told about me. Then he talked about me, about the years I spent caring for him and my grandmother, about my kindness, my loyalty, my sacrifice. This young woman gave up opportunities, relationships, and her own comfort to make sure I wasn't alone, he said, his voice breaking. And her own family tried to destroy her for it. By the time he finished, millions of people had watched. Social media exploded. Miranda's blog post was torn apart. Journalists began investigating my family's claims. Within hours, the narrative flipped completely. Strangers who had sent me hate messages now sent apologies. The family became an instant scandal. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. Ms. Rowan, my name is Vincent Holloway. I'd like to discuss an opportunity with you. Vincent Holloway was a famous entrepreneur who ran a successful charity foundation. He had seen Elias's press conference and wanted to meet me. We sat in a quiet coffee shop while he explained his offer. I need someone to manage our newest foundation branch. Someone who understands genuine compassion, not just wealthy people playing philanthropist. The salary he offered made my head spin. The position came with resources, connections, and the ability to actually change lives on a massive scale. But I hesitated. I'm not qualified. I've never managed anything like this. You've been managing people's needs for years, Vincent said gently. You just did it without recognition or payment. Still, doubt gnawed at me. What if I failed? What if I wasn't enough? That night, an email arrived. The subject line read, "From Elias, open when you're doubting yourself." My hand shook as I clicked the video attachment. Elias appeared on screen, sitting in his study. The timestamp showed it was recorded 3 months ago. "Hello, my dear Lila," he began, smiling softly. "If you're watching this, it means you're standing at the edge of something big and you're afraid." Elias's voice filled my apartment as I watched through tears. "I've always known you doubted yourself, sweetheart. You give so much to everyone else, but struggle to see your own worth." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Let me tell you what I see. I see a woman who has more strength in her little finger than most people have in their entire body. I see someone who chose kindness when cruelty would have been easier." The camera shook slightly as he adjusted it. "Your grandmother and I always knew you were special. We knew that one day, the world would see it too." His voice grew stronger. "Your new life starts the moment you choose it, Lila. Don't let fear hold you back. Don't let their voices in your head convince you that you're not enough. You are more than enough. You always have been." He smiled, that familiar gentle smile that had comforted me my whole life. "Be brave. Live boldly. Make us proud. But most importantly, make yourself proud." The video ended. I sat in silence, replaying his words in my mind. Then I picked up my phone and called Vincent Holloway. "I accept." The foundation work consumed me in the best possible way. I helped fund education programs, housing initiatives, and medical assistance for people who had fallen through society's cracks. Every day, I met people who reminded me of myself, overlooked, underestimated, but full of potential. I used my new resources to give them the chances nobody had given me. Confidence grew slowly. I learned to speak up in meetings, to trust my instincts, to believe I belonged in these rooms with powerful people. Months passed. The foundation flourished. My name became associated with genuine charity work rather than family scandal. But then a journalist named Oliver Sterling began digging into my past. He called repeatedly, asking questions about my relationship with Elias about the inheritance, about my family's accusations. I'm writing a profile piece, he explained. People want to know the truth about what really happened. I agreed to one interview, nervous about reopening old wounds. Oliver was thorough, asking difficult questions but listening carefully to my answers. I need to talk to your family too, he said. For balance. My stomach dropped. They'll lie. He smiled slightly. Let them. The truth has a way of emerging. Oliver's article was published on a Sunday morning. The headline read, "The Granddaughter They Tried to Erase, a Story of Loyalty, Greed, and Justice." He had done his homework. He interviewed neighbors, former teachers, hospital staff, and people I had helped over the years. He obtained additional court documents and financial records that exposed Miranda, Jerome, and Petra's exploitation in even greater detail. But he also included their interviews, and they had lied exactly as I predicted. They called me manipulative, greedy, and calculating. Then Oliver systematically dismantled every lie with evidence. Photos, timestamps, witness statements. By the end of the article, their credibility was completely destroyed. The article went viral. News outlets picked it up. Television programs discussed it. My family's reputation collapsed entirely. Miranda's husband filed for divorce. Jerome's business partners cut ties with him. Petra lost her job. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad for who they could have been if they had chosen differently. Then Mr. Caldwell called. "Lila, you need to come to my office immediately." Elias made additional changes to his documents that I wasn't aware of until now. Mr. Caldwell's office felt different this time, heavier somehow. He placed a folder in front of me with trembling hands. "Elias made these changes just before his press conference," he explained. "He didn't tell anyone, including me, until the documents were already filed and sealed." I opened the folder. Inside was the final version of Elias's will. My eyes scanned the pages, struggling to comprehend what I was reading. 90% of his entire estate, properties, investments, savings, everything, transferred to me. The remaining 10% designated for various charities. Miranda, Jerome, and Petra received nothing, specifically written out, with detailed explanations of why. This is... I couldn't finish the sentence. "Life-changing," Mr. Caldwell finished quietly. "You're now one of the wealthiest young women in the state, Lila." The weight of it crushed over me. This wasn't just money. This was Elias's entire life's work, his legacy, his trust in me. "There's something else," Mr. Caldwell added, his expression somber. "Elias has been readmitted to the hospital. His condition has deteriorated rapidly. You should go now." I ran through the hospital corridors, my heart pounding. The nurses let me through immediately. Elias lay in bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, monitors beeping softly. But when he saw me, his face lit up with that familiar smile. "There's my girl," he whispered. I collapsed into the chair beside him, taking his frail hand in mine. "Grandpa, the will. It's too much. You've given me everything." "Exactly what I intended," he said, his voice weak but content. "You were the only one who deserved it. The only one who cared about me as a person, not as a bank account." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, his thumb rubbing small circles on my hand like he used to when I was small. "I'm so proud of you," he continued, "watching you step into your strength these past months. It's been the greatest gift of my life." Tears streamed down my face. "I couldn't have done any of it without you." "You would have," he insisted. You were always capable. You just needed someone to believe in you first. His eyes grew heavy. Lila, there's one more thing. Your grandmother's letter. It's time to open it now. My hands shook as I broke the burgundy wax seal. Inside were 3 items: a handwritten letter, architectural sketches, and a small silver pendant. My grandmother's elegant handwriting filled the pages. My dearest Lila, if you're reading this, then Elias has ensured you received everything we always intended for you. But there's one dream your grandfather and I never completed, a dream we hope you'll fulfill for us. Before I became ill, I wanted to create a sanctuary for vulnerable children, kids aging out of foster care, escaping abuse, or simply needing a safe place to heal and grow. We purchased land for this purpose 40 years ago, but life intervened. The sketches included show what we envisioned. I've watched you grow into a woman of extraordinary compassion. You are exactly who we hoped you would become. This dream is yours now, if you choose to accept it. The architectural sketches showed a beautiful campus, dormitories, classrooms, gardens, and recreational spaces. I examined the pendant. It was engraved with coordinates. The land location, Elias whispered from his bed. We've kept it untouched all these years, waiting for the right person to bring the dream to life. The coordinates led me to a stunning piece of land 2 hours outside the city. Rolling hills, mature trees, and a small lake sparkled in the afternoon sun. It was absolutely perfect. A construction crew waited at the entrance, truck engines idling. The foreman approached with a clipboard. "Ms. Rowan, we've been expecting you. Mr. Elias contracted us months ago to be ready when you arrived. We have the architectural plans and can begin whenever you give the word." I walked the property in stunned silence, imagining the sanctuary taking shape. Children playing by the lake. Teenagers studying under the trees. Young adults learning skills and building confidence. This was more than just building a facility. This was creating hope. "How long will construction take?" I asked. "With your budget and our full crew?" "About 18 months for the main buildings. Less if you want to start in phases." I thought of Elias in that hospital bed, of my grandmother's dream, of all the vulnerable kids who needed this place. "Start immediately," I said, "and hire more workers if it means finishing faster." The foreman smiled. "Yes, ma'am." As machines began clearing the construction site, my phone rang. An unknown number with a government area code. The caller was Christina Wallace, a state official working on child welfare reform. She had heard about my foundation work and was impressed by the sanctuary plans that had somehow already reached government circles. "We'd like to partner with you," she explained during our meeting the following week. "Your sanctuary model could be replicated across the state, potentially nationwide. The government would provide funding, regulatory support, and connections to social services." The proposal was massive. Instead of one sanctuary, we could create 20, 50, eventually hundreds. We could change child welfare policy at the systemic level. The construction progressed rapidly. The community rallied behind the project, offering donations, volunteer hours, and resources. Local businesses provided materials at cost. Retired teachers offered to help with educational programming. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Miranda, Jerome, and Petra watched all of this happen from a distance, powerless and bitter. Their attempts to discredit me had backfired so completely that even mentioning the Rowan name brought them shame. I didn't gloat. I simply focused on the work, on honoring Elias and my grandmother's legacy. 6 months into construction, Elias passed away peacefully in his sleep. His funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched. I was the one who delivered his eulogy. 2 years later, I stood at the grand opening of the Rowan Home for Loyal Hearts. The main building rose majestically against the blue sky, windows gleaming in the sunlight. Children who had been the first residents played on the new playground, their laughter filling the air. Christina Wallace was there, announcing the expansion program that would bring the sanctuary model to 12 other states. Vincent Holloway spoke about the foundation's growth and impact. Journalists documented everything. But the moment that mattered most was when I cut the ribbon and whispered to the sky, "I hope I made you proud, Grandpa." A young girl, maybe 12 years old, approached me shyly. She was one of our first residents, a foster child who had aged out of the system with nowhere to go. "Ms. Rowan," she said quietly, "thank you for believing we deserve a place like this. Thank you for seeing us." I knelt down to her level, remembering how invisible I had felt when my own family cast me aside. "Everyone deserves to be seen," I told her. "Everyone deserves to be valued. That's what this place is about." As the sun set over the sanctuary, I realized that I was no longer the girl who had been thrown out and broken. I had become the woman who rose above cruelty with dignity and strength, who transformed pain into purpose, who built something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. The Rowan Home for Loyal Hearts wasn't just a sanctuary for vulnerable children. It was proof that loyalty and kindness ultimately triumph over greed and cruelty. It was the reward Elias always intended, not just the inheritance, but the opportunity to become who I was always meant to be.